Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct privilege to invite to deliver our keynote address, the Honorable Prime Minister, James Marape. Sir, we are humbled by your commitment to address industry amidst your extremely busy schedule this week.
Thank you very much, Neville, the Master of Ceremonies, for this very important conference, seminar, or webinar, as it's now better known these days. Let me acknowledge everyone who are tuning in, my live audience, the smallest audience in as far as a live audience in as far as this session is concerned, historically speaking, but nonetheless, thank you to the use of technology. We're having this important seminar or webinar being interfaced globally speaking. And I note from the briefing I got, we have a live audience right across. I do acknowledge each and every one of you wherever you are tuning in from. The Vice President of the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, Mr. Baskins, thank you again for your welcoming words and your introduction of me basically into the podium to present my keynote address on these important conversations. But let me thank again those of you in the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum for your continual presence and your activities that ensure we in government and all stakeholders in these two important sectors, the mining sector and petroleum sector, remain focused on what we're supposed to do in as far as not just working and harvesting resources in our country, but making sure that we all are good corporate and citizens, as well as government also is cognizant to what is the industry need and expectations. And so let me thank the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum for always being an advocate, not just for the mining and mining and petroleum industry sectors, but also for the country as you try to ensure you find a fine balance and interface in different dynamics that is always at play. I would also acknowledge the presenters who will present after me. I note two presentations especially that will follow suit, and I will give my time to sit into these two presentations so that we are all pay respect to and hear what is the conversation on mining and petroleum sector globally speaking, and for us in PNG maybe could assist in ensuring that we keep ourselves in check and conversant with the industry, and for us government to hear what is the contemporary conversation in the mining and petroleum space. Government from the outset, let me say, acknowledges the important contribution the mining and petroleum sector provides to our country and to the economy. Without this sector, our country would be far behind in terms of our economic performance and in terms of our service delivery by government to our people. And so from the outset, let me, excuse me, say thank you very much to the influence this sector has had to our country, to government in terms of our direct and indirect taxes and revenue we collect, to the many spin-offs that exist in our country, from the large, medium to small enterprises, and more importantly also to our many small businesses that feed off these formal businesses. And the mining and petroleum sector has played a very important role in that regards. Just from the numbers that have been given in terms of and for the benefit of this conversation and to be placed on record, the number of, on average, the direct employment this sector contributes on average amounts to around 20,000 plus. The indirect jobs that are associated with the mining and petroleum sector amounts to a little over 30,000, if not over 30,000 jobs that are indirectly created associated with the mining and petroleum sector. And one statistic that is very glaring in our face is that over 86%, if not 90% of our total export revenue, presently speaking, is from the mining and petroleum sector. And these two important industries accounts for close to over 26% of our gross domestic product. And so these sort of figures cannot be ignored by government and cannot be ignored by our country. The mining and petroleum sector is a very important sector in as far as our economy is concerned, in as far as our country is concerned. This year, or in fact, this week, May 30th this year, our government celebrated being in office 2 years. We took office in the midst of many sensitivities. Chief amongst them was my generation's view that the generation before was reckless in the manner in which they were running our country. Apart from generic corruptions and complacency issues, we felt that there were room for improvement in the way we were doing business, especially in the harvest of our natural resources. And as I speak today, 2 years on, our focus remains the same. Our zeal to get a fair and equitable return on from our resources remains the same. In fact, my advocacy in this space has sometimes been misconstrued. They think that we are on a hard-nosed, over-aggressive drive to chase away foreign investors, but far from the truth. We're not in the business of chasing away foreign investors. We're in the business of working with foreign investors, so where possible within existing legislative framework and resource agreement frameworks, we could maximize collection of revenues for our country. Whether it's direct revenue collection through our taxes and the different types of tax we have in our country in as far as our revenue laws are concerned, or collecting from our rents and rates, or collecting from the many spin-off businesses that emanate from our resource projects in as far as our endeavors to define what is local content and redefining the scope of local content. My conversation since I took office, 30th of May 2019, was to make a push to get where we can get from our country, but at the same time giving respect to our investors so that they could make a return on their investments. The fundamental principle of investors making money is not ignored completely in this conversation. Investors, whether it's for instance, in the production sharing regime or in the present regimes we have, one principle my government acknowledges, and any government into the future in our country will forever recognize, is that our investors need to make money for the investment dollar or investment kina they put into our country. And so at this time in this important webinar, let me give my assurance to all who are tuning in, all stakeholders in the mining and the petroleum space. We are not in the business of chasing away investors. More so genuine investors, reputable investors, credible investors, especially those investors who've been with us in our story as a sovereign state. And those who want to come in with the investment dollars, we are here to ensure that the playing field is certain for you. The legislative environment is clear for you, and your comfort in investment, whether it's in the exploration space or in the development space, is certain. For no government, whether it's my government or any government into the future, as we have been in the past, will be reckless to change the goalposts in between. And let me re-emphasize this. We are a robust country, a democratic country, a country that respects the rule of law. And the last 45 years of our country's life as an independent state has many testimonies where an agreement signed is an agreement that is honored throughout the life and length of that agreement. And so my government, or any government into the future, as we've had in the past, are governments that will be friendly to ensuring that we honor commitments we make to our investors, we honor agreements we've signed with our investors, and we also give ample signal if there are any rooms for changes in our legislations or shift in regime as my government is trying to advocate. There'll be ample signal to our investors. And speaking on ample signal to investors, in my conversation with some of our present leading investors in our country, ExxonMobil, Total, Newcrest, Harmony, to name a few, who were present, oil sets, I beg your pardon, oil sets, who were in that meeting room in Brisbane. I did inform them, and to their comfort, that as the conversation ramps up on changing the present regimes, we will be very much sensitive to the need to maintain stability right through the course of these conversations. Any agreements already secured will run its full course. For instance, any mining development contracts that is being currently run will run its full course. Any license secured in exploration, for instance, will also run its full course because they were secured under existing regimes. Changes that are coming are prospective. Most of these changes, if not all of them, will come into full effect in 2025 when our nation celebrates 50 years of independence. This is part of responsibility and a mature approach. For we have our investors and their interest to protect. They have come this far with us, and we have given them enough signal. Any changes we make will be prospective, but will not tamper with existing agreements we have in place or existing license that has been secured under present regimes. These conversations are ongoing. The industry will be kept informed and kept abreast, and I'm happy to be part of this session and to listen to other speakers who will speak on what are industry best practice in planet Earth, and for PNG to find our own model that embraces investors and investor confidence and ensure that investors have a return on their investments, whilst at the same time PNG makes more. I did remind that conference in Brisbane that Papua New Guinea is also littered with experiences of mining project-induced problems. None can be far greater than the Bougainville crisis, where one part of our country is advocating succession. And in that context, I also ask for a fair discussion in this sort of conversation, so that where possible we could get more for our country, and not just in taxes and direct revenues, but also especially in the area of spin-offs in local content and spin-off in downstream processing. My government is a great advocator of industries shifting to downstream in our country. It is high time, 46 years on since 1975, we advocate downstream, and I would be giving greater support and incentive to companies who are in our country or companies who want to come in, who will stand up with government partnering for the area of downstream in the sectors that they operate in. And in this instance, when I speak to those of you who have interest in the mining and petroleum space, I look for the majors or the super majors, the majors in these sectors, as well as the juniors, for those who would want to come in and partner us in the area of downstream processing of our resources. And this is not just a conversation to the mining and petroleum space. That downstream is far a greater conversation to the forestry and agricultural sector in our country. So I'd just like to speak to the mining and petroleum audience. The generic conversation is not just targeted at one sector. It's a focus of our government to add value to our resources, and it's a generic policy statement, but also targeting specific industries. And if someone out there in the mining space or someone out there in the petroleum space who wants to pick up this dream, Papua New Guinean dream, to now move into the primary sector in the petroleum and mining space, then you would have the greatest attention of government as I speak. Let me also announce that tomorrow I'll be moving into Pogra Valley. Many of you have been observant to what is taking place at Pogra. The Pogra story is a reflection of how we've come in the last 45 years. There are ups and downs in our country, but something is commendable is the fact that for 30 years, since 1989 when the Pogra ink dried up in the first Pogra agreement, government changed at different levels, but the Pogra agreement ran its full course. 30 years, no government was able to fail the Pogra agreement. Lease expired. When lease expired, government did what we had to do for our country's interests. But we never chased away the investor, and in this instance, Barrick, who was a great part of the Pogra story. And Barrick exercised its right to review what we did, and we never said you did or what you're doing is wrong, and we locked Papua New Guinea away from Barrick officials. They ran to our courtrooms. We had engagements with them on the side. And eventually, after many lengthy court cases and many lengthy negotiations, within existing regimes, we were able to strike up an agreement with a super major in the gold business in our country in COVID-sensitive times, and an agreement that is far superior than most agreements today was reached. Tomorrow I'm going in with Barrick as our operator in the new Pogra, where Papua New Guinea stakeholders will all own 51% stake in the new Pogra. And Barrick, and I repeat again, Barrick is a super major in the gold business, has agreed to a 49% stake in the new Pogra going forward. They know the mining sector. They know the mining industry back to front. Within the size of the 49% equity, they know they will make an equitable return on their investment. And they choose to sign this agreement with us. This is what I am talking about. We may sound hard, but we understand your space in making profit for your shareholders. Papua New Guinea has been open for the mining and petroleum sector, and we will be open to the mining and petroleum sector forever. We understand principle of you making a fair share return on your investments. Let's open the books, let's look into the agreements together, let's work it through. Some will require not necessarily a change of the regimes to make it happen for us. And I'd like to encourage, and as I speak, I apologize to Harmony and Newcrest for what is seemingly a delay, but our national government has remained focused on Wafi-Golpu. We've already released issued the environmental permit, although the sub-national government directly in the precinct of Wafi-Golpu has taken national government to court, but we're working this through. And we will progress Wafi-Golpu after Pogra is being moved. In the petroleum space, I'm excited that a smaller field called Pasca is being discussed, but I put the Pasca developer on notice. Let's get together and sit on the table. If the biggest gold miner or second biggest gold miner in the world can fly 4 times in and out during pandemic to come and meet government officials to put pen to paper in as far as the agreement is concerned, and I asked the Pasca stakeholders, we've asked them to sit in a round table with us and let's go through what are the issues and for us to cross in Pasca. Let me thank ExxonMobil for reopening discussions on Pinyang. Yesterday's cabinet established a special S&T on Pinyang. And so to the world out there, Papua New Guinea has not felt intimidated by COVID-19, and we're not reclusive. We living through COVID-19 doing business. Barrick is our new partner, or continuing partner in the new Pogra. We're talking about Wafi-Golpu project with Newcrest and Harmony. We're re-engaging with ExxonMobil now on Pinyang. Our Deputy Prime Minister has flown to Paris to meet Mr. Puyana of Total and has come back, and they're remobilizing for Papua LNG. And smaller fields like Pasca and Pandora and others, stranded resources are being mobilized for harvest of our petroleum sector resources. We have been actively in business in the midst of COVID-19 in as far as the petroleum and mining sector is concerned. And so I'd like to use this opportunity for the sector to be reminded that Papua New Guinea has not closed door in as far as our COVID-19 periods are concerned. We remain open for business, doing business in the petroleum and mining space, whilst being sensitive to the COVID effect on planet Earth as well as in our country. And as I bring my conversation to close, let me again conclude by reminding everyone, Papua New Guinea is a robust democracy. We always honor commitments we make with our investors. Whether in this regime or any prospective regime into the future, your rate of return on your investment will be respected. And we like to encourage others who want to come in. You only have to look at investors who've been with us in the last 45 years of our nation's history. And I give you one example of the Kutubu oil fields. Since 1990, no cargo of export from the Kumul terminals have missed an export deadline. This is the proud testimony of our country. And I ask for everyone who out there in the mining and petroleum space, we remain a very robust place of investment. The conversations around regime changes will be made in great consultation with the industry so that the respectability of the return on investment is maintained, whether in these regimes or the prospective production sharing regimes that we've been advocating since we took office. So on this note, let me thank you again for inviting me to be part of these occasions. We will work with the industry, we will work with the sector to ensure that the sector remains an active part of our country's future economy and future going forward into the future. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you again for this moment of conversation, and I will sit in through and listen to the next few speakers on this sector. God bless each and every one of you.